What's up, everybody? This is Eddie with Flex Machine Tools. Hey, and welcome to our latest episode of Flex and Friends, a videocast experience series where I get to sit down, chat, hang out with, and pick the brain of some of the industry's loudest, proudest, best, brightest, most passionate, and profound thought leaders. And today, man, we're going to be talking about everything, you guessed it, manufacturing. And to talk about this, we have one of our great friends, a true thought leader within the industry, Jason Ray, the co-founder and CEO of Paperless Parts. But I won't get too much into it because why not let the man himself do it? So one moment, let's bring him on in the stream. Jason, my guy, dude, it's so awesome to have you. Hopefully you're having an amazing day, but man, let's jump into it, man. How are you doing?
I'm doing awesome, Eddie. Thanks so much for having me. I love your energy. It gets me fired up. I love it.
There we go. Well, hey, man, I like yours as well. So let's make some cool stuff happen today. We obviously have some individuals watching, and we got to get to know you. Obviously, you're going to provide a wealth of knowledge when it comes to your business, but we are but humans first. So I would love to know, who is Jason Ray personally, and then we'll segue into professionally. So tell us a little bit about you, man.
Oh my goodness, I appreciate you asking. And I just want to say, first off, thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity. So who am I personally? Well, I'm a husband, and we've been married now. We got married during the pandemic. So that is probably the most important, or definitely is the most important thing I have outside of my work life. Other than that, I spend an enormous amount of time working on the business. I think a lot of the shop owners out there, they know that their businesses are very much like their children. It's the thing that you're thinking about 24/7. So this is where I spend most of my time. I love working out. I'm a washed up college wrestler, so I miss that stuff, but I got a kick out of the Olympics. It was awesome to see it. I'm a Navy vet. Loved being in the military. It was one of the best things I did. So that's who I am.
There we go, man. So much. And I feel like we're barely even scratching the surface, but you gave us a little bit, and so which is great. We are going to be diving into those here in a second because you have too many interesting facets in your life for us to not just dive into that, which is great. And so aside from that, as we get to know you just a little bit more, you have some superpowers, man. What would you consider to be those, man?
It's a really good question. One of my co-founders actually just sent me an email, and he said that my superpower is the ability to ask questions and take feedback really well, even when it goes against something that I thought was maybe the right way to do it, and I'm getting feedback that's pushing me in another direction. I'm a big fan of strong opinions loosely held. Data drives everything we do. So sure, I have a lot of beliefs. I have strong beliefs around what's going to be best for our customers. Now we can take care of them. But at the same time, when I find out something's not right, well, I can pivot quick. And I have no problem with that. There's no pride in this. It's all about winning as a team.
Amen. Amen, dude. All of the above. If that was an option, I'd be checking it right now. I seriously, I dig it so much. And then aside from that, we obviously know that a big part of you, your brand, and who you are is Paperless Parts. So let's transition that way. So really, what goes down? What are you even doing? Not you specifically, but as a team. What is your team doing at Paperless Parts, man?
We're growing like crazy, to be honest. It's nuts. So we went into the pandemic, 2020, 14 people. I've got 70 people on the team right now. And we are growing at like lightning pace. It's awesome because what it tells me that manufacturers are adopting modern technology to run their businesses. And that tells me that our ability to help the U.S. industrial base and help American manufacturers succeed, it's just getting better and better and better. And it's awesome. So, I think, what do we do at Paperless Parts? Our whole mission is to make manufacturing more accessible by providing modern software solutions. So a lot of people say to me, they're like, well, what is accessibility? Like, what does that even mean?
Right.
We're talking about a ramp where there's stairs. Like, what is accessible? Accessible is all about a manufacturer's ability to communicate their awesome capabilities to a customer when and where they need to. And typical communication from a manufacturer, it comes in the form of a quote. Every job typically starts with a quote. So your customers are coming to you and they are asking you, can you make this? How much does it cost? And when can we have it? If you can't effectively do that quickly, if you can't respond, you are getting left behind, because there are a lot of companies out there today, big companies, Xometry, Proto Labs, Plethora, Fictive. All these companies are designed to do exactly that for a buyer very, very fast. They've invested hundreds of millions of dollars in new technology, building solutions that are based in software that allow them to do just that, communicate effectively with buyers. Now, our mission, my mission, is to bring modern technology that does just that to every shop out there, because I like fighting for entrepreneurs.
Wow, this is that's a lot of awesome in one statement, man. And I genuinely, like, I love where you're coming from, not only like what it is you're doing, but your wealth of knowledge within the specific industry. And then additionally, just your drive to do it. I think a lot of that drive, correct me if I'm wrong, comes from where you were potentially before Paperless Parts. So you went to college, you did the wrestling, former military, some consulting. Can you kind of sprinkle in a little bit of all those experiences? Because I think it really helps individuals learn more about you, the human, and you, the entrepreneur.
Yeah. So after college, I went into the United States Navy. I was a supply and logistics officer. It was arguably the best career decision I ever could have made.
Nice.
I learned so much. It forced me to grow and grow up in all new ways. I got some phenomenal advice from a mentor who said, look, if you ever want to be an entrepreneur someday, you need to go get serious experience leading people and managing lots of budget and dollars.
Yep.
So I went into the Navy, supply corps officer. My first command was a minesweeper. So this is 235 feet, Douglas fir, wooden ships, iron men and women. It was out in the Persian Gulf, floating around, looking for somewhat non-existent water mines. So cool mission, back and forth between the Persian Gulf, San Diego. But the biggest thing I found is that those platforms, they reached the end of their life or expected life. The military said, okay, well, now we're gonna retire this platform and we're gonna replace it with a new one. And then a few years later, they recognized, well, that's not going to happen. We got to turn the support back on. We got to get parts for this thing. We got to bring these platforms back up to speed. Well, then, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed Ensign Ray shows up, and I can't order anything. There's no supply chain. It's gone. I'm going out to manufacturers directly, trying to get parts, trying to figure out, how do I do my job on the ship? And I started to sit there and say, is our industrial base not as robust as I thought it was? I knew nothing about manufacturing. I'm an econ guy. But I'm sitting there and I'm like, how the heck can't I buy these simple parts for my ship when I'm front lines, man? Like, we're out there. So that really stood out to me. And I started to dig into it and understand. And the biggest thing that really hit me was we weren't manufacturing things in the military anymore. We had really stepped away from that capability. Now that's coming back in huge waves, but I was putting parts on order. We were waiting a year for them.
Yikes.
So I'm like, what is happening? What's broken here? So I went from the minesweeper, where we did some really cool things. We partnered with the Army. We started making parts on the pier. I started to learn about capabilities of manufacturing, and I was just jazzed. I was totally turned on by it. I was like, this is going to be so cool to learn about this. So I went to Washington, D.C. I got to spend time working at Naval Sea Systems Command, which was the military's largest purchasing command. I was buying Standard missiles from Raytheon. I was getting to see what negotiating those contracts were like. And it was a long, slow process.
Wow.
Manufacturers were quoting. It was taking forever to get the quotes back. The cost and pricing data was really challenging. And I started to write about manufacturing in the military. And I was very fortunate that some really influential folks saw that, and I had the opportunity to go work in the Pentagon. So I spent the last couple of years of my time in the Navy working on the Chief of Naval Operations staff, learning all about advanced manufacturing and trying to understand what's the reality of this additive manufacturing that seems to suck all the air out of the room when in reality you can make almost anything on a 5-axis machine? Just saying.
Yeah.
But started to dig into what's the real and what's the fluff. And I started to I was like, I've got to stay involved in manufacturing somehow. So when I left the Navy, I set out to try to buy a manufacturing business. I was like, I get to do something real. I had this whole vision. I was like, I'm not Elon Musk, but maybe I can do like a SpaceX meets Raytheon and just support the front lines all the way.
There you go.
So I spent about 8 months searching for manufacturing businesses to buy. I went around, I talked to owners, visited shops, and the biggest thing I found when I was out at the shops is just no software, no modern software. So here I am. At the time, I'm like 28 years old. I'm digging in. I'm like, oh my goodness, like I know everything about software. I use software in everything I do. And there's nothing. I'm walking in, I'm seeing pen and paper, filing cabinets, Excel spreadsheets. We're like the high speed version of quoting. And I'm like, what is happening? No wonder people can't respond quickly. So Fast forward a little bit. I said to all the investors that were going to support me to buy this company, I said, we're not going to be able to buy a company. I'm not the right guy to run a manufacturing business. I have unbelievable respect for all these people who are doing it, but I'm never going to be able to make it successful on my own. I'm not going to be able to replace that owner who knows everything about the business, knows everything about the last 5 years, 10 years of quotes they've sent. Not going to happen.
Right.
So I gave back all the money, walked away. And my co-founder, Jay Jacobs, who was also a mentor and investor in that search fund I put together, he said to me, he's like, I think you learned something about manufacturing that we should do something with. So he pushed me, and he said, we should start a software business. Let's do it. And so there's a lot of details to that story over a beer, but Jay,
I got it. Or a couple.
It's like the vision behind paperless parts. He had built Rapid Manufacturing, the world's largest prototype sheet metal shop, Rapid Machining, second largest prototype CNC machine shop. And you know what Jay had figured out that a lot of people hadn't? It was how to take 13 people that were not machinists by training and get them to send 120,000 quotes a year successfully.
Wow.
That's crazy. That's a huge volume. That's huge numbers. But making people do that successfully, he had figured out that it's all about using the right tool for the right job. And I think a lot of manufacturers, we spend a lot of time looking at the shop floor, a lot of time programming, figuring out what's the best tool for this feature, what's the best tool for this job. When I talk about what paperless parts is, we are just the best tool for quoting. It's like any other job you're doing in your shop. All you're doing is you're going to pick the best tool for the job to make your people successful.
No, this is great. And I love all of the detailed backstory involving your co-founder, just all of it, because it's so relevant into who you are. And now let's get into the thick of it. We talk a lot about technology, what Paperless Parts is doing, and you're obviously doing a lot of exciting things here. But what specifically do you feel that technology is doing for manufacturing as a whole? So speaking either from your personal experience or from what you're seeing out there in the field right now.
So how much time do we have?
So
I think the biggest thing, one, I always like to try to level set for folks. We hear about these lighthouse manufacturers. We hear about Industry 4.0 and digital threads and all these buzzwords that are going on. We need to take manufacturing from like gross SQL-based on-prem software solutions and printed parts and PDFs and filing cabinets. We need to move from that to modern software. That's the transition we need to make. You don't need to have this full connected factory. I mean, it's great. Go there at some point. But what I'm saying is, today, we got to make steps in the right direction. So when I'm talking to manufacturers and I'm explaining what is it that we do, how is it that we work with them, it's all about taking steps to build automation of rote tasks that you would do every single day. So what I'm seeing in manufacturing today is I'm watching customers, the OEMs, the buyers, they have like awesome software. They're using software across their whole business. They're designing parts in awesome software. They're using CAD. They're using product data management systems to make sure that all the revs are up to date. They're keeping track of that stuff. They're using PLM systems to do their forecasting with product lifecycle management. They're using ERP systems to automate their sourcing and buying. That's all software. Right. And then you cross this bridge and you go into our job shops, and they're using Microsoft Excel, Outlook, and SQL-based ERP. Maybe a CAM system, hopefully a CAM system that's good. And what else? I mean, we just are not seeing a ton of modern software in manufacturing. So that's what I'm trying to push. We need to take and level the playing field. So a lot of the shops that I talk to, they will get a package in a request. So they'll get the RFQ in. And they won't even look at the 3D models because the estimators do not have the software to open the 3D model.
What?
I'm serious. It's crazy.
Wow, okay.
I don't believe it either, but I've seen some stuff you would not believe at all.
Right.
But you have folks that are just like, why would I look at that? I got the print. All I'm going to say is that as software penetrates our customers, as our customers are using better and better software, high speed, low drag, they are going to continue to design more and more complex parts because software is giving them incredible degrees of freedom that are not supported by the reality of manufacturing. And if we allow our customers to get too far from the reality, if that designer is too far from the shop floor, when was the last time someone came into your shop and walked around to understand what you were capable of making? That doesn't really happen, COVID aside. Same thing with buyers. Buyers used to know the shop. They knew what your capabilities meant. They could read an equipment list on your website and they knew what your equipment was. But that is changing. You're getting younger people who know how to drive software, not people who know the end-to-end supply chain. Those relationships start to dissipate. So what we need to do is we need to level the playing field. If OEMs are using CAD and they're viewing models and they're working off of that, arguably a better communication tool than a PDF. Can you imagine? So like right now I can see you and you can see me and everybody else can see us as well. Awesome communication tool. It's great. I'm talking by hands. You get a sense of who I am. It's awesome. Now, if we took this and we transcribed this conversation into writing, and then we handed it to someone, is that going to have the same effect as what we're talking about here? No way. The same thing is absolutely true for when you take a CAD model and then you try to pop it into a PDF and try to understand what's going on that PDF. Sure, you can do it, but you're going to spend dramatically more time trying to understand it.
Gotcha.
So we level that playing field. Sorry, I told you I get excited.
No, I love it. I love it. And so to that point, when it talks about understanding, and I want you to insert excitement in this because you hear Industry 4.0 and automation, and sometimes it's a snooze fest what comes after that, right? But I think if anybody could really give us their good take on it and put a little bit of spice on it, I think that's you. So what are your thoughts on those buzzwords?
You know what? It's great because at least people are talking about it. So I don't ever want to say that they're necessarily bad. I just think everybody needs to qualify what it means for you. What does it mean for your shop? Every shop is unique. If there's anything I've learned, Eddie, every single shop that I go into is unique. They have different ideas. They make different types of parts. They think about running their business differently. This is like not for the faint of heart. Man, entrepreneurs in this industry, they have to spend thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars to just get started. You wonder why young people aren't starting shops right now? Gosh, talk about the barriers to entry. Someone who wants to build an app on an iPhone, I need a Mac, $1,000, and I can start business in a day? You want to start a machine shop, talk about taking a leap and with some serious buy-in. So when I look at Industry 4.0 and I look at that, I want to address your question. There's a lot of technology that falls into that. So I'm a huge fan of working with shops to understand first your process. What is your process map from RFQ, first touch point with that customer, all the way down to shipping parts and collecting the money? Okay. What is the process map? Because manufacturing is a lot about process. And you can't go in and make a process better unless you know what it looks like today. That's true. The best shops that I go into, they always have big printouts of what their process is, and there are notes all over it, and people are analyzing how to make each step better, really digging into that process. So first step with Industry 4.0, know your process. The second step is data is great. Everybody's talking about these enormous amount of data that gets generated in manufacturing that never gets analyzed. What I can say about data is great, but you need to understand what that data correlates to. Like I can hand you a spreadsheet and be like, here's a whole bunch of data, and that doesn't do anything for you. So what's actionable? I really like some of these machine monitoring companies are doing really interesting things because they're going out there and rather than trying to tell you everything, they start simple. Is the machine running or not? That's it. It's binary. That's interesting. Start there. You don't need to look at that and be like, oh, well, what does that tell me? You can get so much from that as a starting point. I go to shops and I talk to the owners and I'm like, so, what's your capacity utilization today? And the guy's like, oh yeah, we run like 65%. And I'm like, oh, interesting. I'm like, so you're running 3 shifts? No, we run 1 shift. I'm like, oh, so you run lights out. That's awesome. And he's like, no, we run 1 shift. Maybe a little bit on the weekends. I'm like, so how are you at 65%?
Interesting.
Numbers matter.
Yeah.
So capacity utilization, that's a big deal. And it can be very eye-opening to realize that your machine could be running for 8,700 hours a year. And in reality, it's running for like 1,100. That's where there's an eye-opening. That's where you can start to look at increasing your capacity and taking on some of those jobs that you didn't think you could take on before. That's like the opening for Industry 4.0. Okay, well, maybe I need to put a robot on this machine. Maybe I need a pallet loader here. Now you can start to think about some of those things that allow you to break through that ceiling. I think a lot of shops are taking it. I see stuff on LinkedIn that fires me up all the time. I'm watching these shops push the boundary. It's very, very cool. And I think more so than ever right now, our industry is on fire. So people are ordering new machines. I'm seeing deliveries you know this better than I do, man.
Oh yeah. Lots of stuff happening. It's crazy to think about, last year at this time to now. It's even though regardless of what anyone's stance or thoughts may be on whether we're still in this pandemic or not, whatever, it's awesome to hear just kind of an echo of what we feel is happening because we only live in our perspective, right? We only get to see our sales orders, right? But it's awesome to hear that from the technological side and hear from that investment point that people are buying machines, investing in better processes. And so obviously you're fired up. You think a lot of good things are happening, but let me challenge you with this, man. If you could wave a magic wand and change something specifically or a short list of things about the current state of U.S. manufacturing, what would you wave that magic wand and change?
Oh, my goodness. I think there needs to be more focus on U.S. manufacturing.
Feed me, bro. Feed me.
There needs to be a huge spotlight. We talked about the barrier to entry, right? This is not a software business. This is a capital intensive, like roll up your sleeves, work your ass off type business. And without being supported, without having the opportunity to go and build those types of businesses for young people to get involved in those businesses, without that being a prospect where I'm sitting there in high school and I can decide, I either go to college or I can go to a trade school and start my own business coming out of there. If that is the narrative needs to change. But right now, that doesn't feel like a prospect. How are you going to start a business out of trade school if you have no funding, if you've got no support?
Right.
This country cannot lose the ability to manufacture things. We saw it during the pandemic. I think the entire country was reminded of the critical importance of manufacturing because we look at it and there are certain things we cannot make in this country anymore. That is bad. That is a threat to our way of life, as far as I'm concerned. And so if I could wave a magic wand, it's we got to stop any of the erosion. And we got to change the lens at which people are looking at manufacturing. You have robotics engineers that go to college, 4-year college, and then they go work at places like Boston Dynamics or Rivian or Tesla or SpaceX. Mm-hmm. Why is that any different than operating a 5-axis or ridiculous CNC machine? Like, why? All you're doing is you're telling a robot how to make something that is unbelievably precise.
Yeah.
Why is that gap so far? It's a human communicating with a robot. Mm-hmm. At its very core. So we got to figure out how we change that narrative. And it's self-serving comment, but I think the more shops work to level up the technology they're using, the more young people are going to see this is for me. So we're in the process of revamping our website. We're going to launch a new website soon, which is super exciting. The biggest thing I said to our whole team, I was like, look, we're building a new website. Why? What's the point? What's the goal? Our goal, when you come to the website, if paperless parts is for you, you should see this is for me. Young people today, when they see manufacturing, they should be able to say, this is for me.
Amen.
Young people are using technology. So if you're not using tech in your shop, how is someone going to come to your business and say, this is for me?
It's hard. Yeah, it may not happen, right? It may not happen. They may go, and I know we're trying to break this stigma, Jason, of that it's all dark, dull, and dingy. I think I heard somebody say, which I love alliteration, but you get it, man.
Sexy. It is like it gives you a whole new lens to look at the world. You will never. I promise you. I say this to everybody that works here. You will never get on an airplane the same way again. You'll be looking at the door. You'll be looking at the parts. You'll be thinking about how many parts go into this thing. You'll be thinking about the supply chain. It will literally give you a different perspective, knowing that our customers, the people that you talk to on the phone, are dropping parts into these components that are going onto this airplane that you're about to fly in. It's a whole new respect for the industry, and people take it for granted. We just go about our lives. We get on these airplanes that fly across the country. Somebody made that. That is incredible.
Yeah, this is true. This is true. And I'm so happy that I finally met another human being who can match my energy about it. I love it. No, that's wonderful stuff, man. And then additionally, you've seen so much of this landscape. You're seeing the technology change the way that we do things, you really as a whole, and you're making a direct impact. But one thing I would love to hear is what is your big claim that you think is going to happen or evolve within manufacturing over the next, let's say, like 10 to 20 plus years? What's happening next for everybody?
Oh my gosh. So these are those scary things where people, like 5 years down the road, they'll pull it up and they'll be like, you didn't know what you were talking about, man. You missed it totally. So I'm going to say something that someone probably said 20 years ago. And I'm going to hope that because manufacturing is typically 20 years behind, my prediction comes true. I believe that we will eventually get to a point where a lot of the files, a majority of the files that are being used to communicate technical specifications, those files are in model-based definition files. That's where I think the industry is going, because computers don't read PDFs well. Period. I can take the words off of them. I can guess binary. Says this means this. That's fine. We can do that. I can flag it if you see something in a PDF. Great.
Right.
But a model-based definition file where the GD&T is embedded in the 3D model, you are communicating in a way that a computer can start to understand that. I believe that changes the game. I think you're going to see the files start to be now. That is where everybody can be like, that dude doesn't know anything. Those files have been around since 2003. What are we doing?
Right.
Why? For profit. It was all about profit. Oh, you can't use my proprietary file format. What is that? You make it so no one can access the walled garden. Nobody can use it. It's ridiculous. Man. So now, 20 years later, we're starting to get a common file format, Step 242, paving the road for us all to have access to technology. So now, I believe we're starting to knock down the walls and make it so that everybody can use this level of, it's all about communication. So My parents told me when I first started dating, they said, look, I'm going to give you one piece of big advice. Communication is the key to a successful relationship. It is so true in personal life, but it is also so true in business. Mm-hmm. If you can't communicate effectively to your suppliers what you're going to make in a format that they can understand, how can you expect them to do the job really well for you? Vice versa, if you can't read the way your customers are communicating, we got to get on the same wavelength.
Right. This is true, and it comes through. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I mean, you got me going.
No, I love it. You keep going, right? Yeah. You're talking about data, talking about communication and all these wonderful things. And that's a very profound statement because of course, obviously with relationships, communication is key. And that's huge how that can be so applicable to what it is that you're doing. And it's not self-serving by any means. It's just very, very relevant. And then additionally, speaking of relevancy, we covered a lot of awesome stuff today. But for those who maybe missed our live stream, which we will be sharing this here soon, and they want to get more information on yourself, they want to learn more about Paperless Parts, really see what you're doing, where can we go to get that info, man?
So we have a website today. I said that website's about to be getting better, but it is a website. You can go to paperlessparts.com. So this is our website. You can learn a little bit more about our estimating, quoting, sales tools. If you pause right there for me, Eddie, this is something that's near and dear. If you scroll up for just one more scroll, right there in the center, that ITAR. So
I got you right here.
I'm a huge fan of making sure that we are protecting customers' information. I think it's every manufacturer's responsibility to treat their customers' intellectual property with the highest level of security. That IP, that is huge. That is so important. Paperless Parts is designed for that. We have a full secure file sharing system built right into our tool. So when you're communicating with your plating shop, you never have to worry about them potentially getting hacked or exposing those files. When you're communicating back with your customer, you're going to do it in a secure way. So now your customers are like, wow, this supplier respects our intellectual property. They're playing at the level of partner that we want to work with. Right. So, but to answer your question, this is where I would go to find some more information. Please check out, we got blogs. We've got my co-founder, Jay Jacobs, runs the Job Shop show. It's awesome. We have Women in Manufacturing podcast. We have some really badass participants on that as well. Just gives you a sense of the different things you can check out on Paperless Parts. And as always, I'm happy to talk to you too, because it's my favorite thing to talk about if you couldn't tell.
I love it. I love it, man. And it's slowly becoming my favorite thing to talk about. You keep it up, man. Though this is great, man. And we've spent an awesome amount of time really adding value, diving deep into not only who is Jason, but what is Paperless Parts, what you're doing, and most importantly, I'm thinking is why you're doing it. So we thank you so much, Jason, for being our really enthusiastic, energetic, profound, and very, very passionate thought leader. You added so much. So thank you for joining us. We appreciate all of our live viewers checking us out on YouTube Live as well as LinkedIn Live. Make sure you check out Paperless Parts. Got a really good website, putting out great content in their blog as well as their socials. Also following this, check out flexmachinetools.com. You can find us on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. Man, we're even messing around on TikTok. So again, we appreciate you. Keep in touch because we will be releasing some new episodes soon. But this has been awesome, Jason. Thank you all so much. Until next time, you stay awesome, stay flexing. We'll see you this next episode, everybody.